Good evening, all of you. I'm actually at the moment in Lahore, in Pakistan, for a few months, and I came here 2 months ago. Really liked it, and decided to spend some more time here to work on gender, on diversity, and why not explore as well the topic of masculinity. So yeah, so a lot of work here. So I'm really happy to be with you tonight. I'll be sharing some of my work. I think that today on the event page, on the Facebook event page, I shared with you some links you can use. I shared one article, which is a summary of some books from Bell. I really recommend to read if you're interested in that topic. And as well, page of my association called Shift Balance, and where I put a lot of the slide share and all the information I will be sharing tonight. If you need to find some more information. So are we ready to go, Christina? Can we go? Can we start? Do you see my screen properly? I hope so. I will believe that we do. Okay, so the topic today was, is it a man's, are we still living in a man's world? So I guess given the latest information from the US, I think we kind of have the answer to this. But let's see a little what we have out there. So I really like this campaign. I don't know if you've seen it from Elle UK with the hashtag more. And basically, what they did is that they photoshopped different of power, and they photoshopped the men out of it. So basically, I think it's D12, something like that, and you only have like 3 women left. And this was, I guess, the U.S. Security Council or something like that before. Now I think there will be nobody anymore. And Angela on her own, and this is the UK House of Commons, I guess. So it's still a lot of men's work in different fields in politics all around the world. Women occupy only 22% of the parliamentary seats worldwide, and only impact this quantity of the policies that are set up all around the world. Actually, I don't know if you know, but the country which has the most women representatives is Rwanda. So it's quite interesting to know. More men in the US are named down who run big companies than all women. So just a funny stat about this, about leadership. Talking about the pay gap. Well, we have a global 24% pay gap with differences according to the region, 14% in the Middle East, according to 33% in Southeast Asia, And if you want to look outside, you look in the cities, look in the streets. There's this project that has mapped the sexism of city streets. So they analyzed Bombay, they analyzed San Francisco, New York, London, Paris, and they realized that only a quarter of the streets in the world were named after women. Even in Madrid, I've lived in Barcelona for a long time, only 7 out of 273 metro stations in Madrid are named after women. So the outside world is sending this image. And even our language, and here I'm talking more about English, obviously, but this idea that, when you enter a room, how many of us have done this, no? To say, hey, guys, and you're like, oh, okay, so I'm a guy now. So male is generic, right? Mankind, manpower, man-made. And this idea that the masculine, even by the presence of even one male, is the default. And all this is sending some messages, even if it's unconscious, but that the idea is that our world is androcentric. We see it from a male perspective. And I like this Twitter account, I don't know if you know it, which is called Man Who Has It All. And it's also a Facebook page, so have a look at it, it's really funny. But yeah, they publish different Facebook posts like this. Like when I talk about achievement, I'm referring to women's achievements as a whole, including men's, right? And to see how that sounds weird when actually the reverse is not weird at all. This guy saying, I don't mind being called a post-woman because I know it covers both women and men. Anything else sounds silly. So, yeah, it's also language, and even in terms of sex, we have an orgasm gap. So I would not deep into it, but yeah, it covers everywhere. So I like this quote from Carolina Criado Perez, and she says, like, patriarchy is like a matrix, you know, like the movie, where you're actually living in it every day, but you don't see it. It's so much in your day-to-day that you're not actually aware of it. So much not aware that sometimes you talk with people. Oh, you are losing me? Are you hearing me now? Or do you want me to, okay, so perhaps I should go slower? Okay, so I will go slower. So I was saying that this idea that patriarchy is like a matrix, and that we're living in it every day, even if we're not always aware of it. So just to have a definition, the patriarchy, the rule of the father, is this idea of a social system in which males hold primary powers. Would it be political leadership, moral authority, social privilege, control of property? And in the domain of family, it's fathers or father figures who hold this authority. So, our political system in many, many areas around the world is still extremely patriarchal. And it's basically a system of domination, which is enforced through violence and the threat of violence. So I think this world of domination is the most important, right? Because sometimes when we hear patriarchy, we associate it a lot with men, but actually it's more a system in itself. It's more that the idea that the strongest will oppress the weakest. No? So it's the idea of powerful men who control women, children, other men who may not be as powerful, and even nature. With the consequences that we can see right now. And the idea as well is that it's not an explicit effort, right? Men just like grown up and realize that they want to dominate women. It's something that is really unconscious. And this idea of privilege, if you have read any books from Michael Kimmel, it's a very interesting sociologist talking about gender. And he said that privilege is invisible to those who have it. You know, I remember every time I started to talk about patriarchy with my father, it's like, you had no idea what I'm talking about, as if this wouldn't happen, you know? So the people who have privilege, they don't see it. A few examples of male privilege. So I like to talk about the spreading, for example, no? That they have this sign in the New York metro, for example. I don't know if some women recognize this idea of men, no, in meetings, in transport, anything like spreading the legs, right? And we always have to squeeze our legs. So this idea of privilege, this seems like a joke, but it's really about occupying the space. And if you look at urbanism, the way cities are planned are saying a lot of the urban structures are actually set up mostly for males, and this idea of occupying the space. So different privilege that we're not aware of. For example, how many men are aware of the queues that women face, you know, when we go to bathrooms? And again, that can seem a detail, but obviously the privilege to be paid more or to have access to sex, to porn, to prostitution. Whether we be okay with it or not, it's still privilege. So this system of privilege, as any system of privilege, would it be the white who were running this privilege towards Afro-American in the US? Would it be the apartheid? Any system of privilege is actually hurting us all. So that's the word of bell hook, that feminism is actually for everybody, for men and women. And that if we accept evil without protesting against it, we are actually cooperating with that. So I think you are aware that there are two major trends or schools explaining the gender roles. And it's always very kind of a fight between the two, right? The first one are what we call the sociobiologists, and they think that it's about nature. Men and women different gender, is natural, women are weaker, so men are stronger, they're supposed to dominate women because that's what nature says. And the social constructionists say that it's actually culture, that gender is a social construct and patriarchy is not. And it's always a balance in between the two. So there is no clear answer. Obviously, I'm definitely more prone to think that culture has a very heavy role. Nature has a role as well, but first, culture is the thing we can work on, and nature not so much. But actually, the nature we see now with neuroscience that we can rewire our brain. So even nature can change. So we'll go further. I'll explain briefly how this patriarchy system has been created, and there are different explanations of it. One which is to everybody, I'll talk about different theories. So if you want to know more about it, there's this book, The Creation of Patriarchy, from Gerda Lerner, explaining this. And what she says is that one of the first triggers is when men actually understood their role in procreation. Because before, there was one thing which was having relationships, sexual relationships, and another thing which was giving birth. And it was not connected. Once, during the Neolithic period, there was this connection between actually the male and procreation. This triggered and realized their role in producing offspring. So that was the first thing that triggered something. And before this, we'll talk about it later as well, before this, the female, those giving birth and those who was most, let's say. Then the second was private property, right? What Engels says is private property is the world's historic of humans. So the fact that suddenly, instead of sharing everything, makes us actually want to be sure who is and or you control the sexual of children. Is that sure go on or really from there the men of the success. The two roles as property were we into the patriarchy, and from there we back into the public. Would it be the Code of Hammurabi, and then would it be the Bible, and would actually explain what to be done and how it was traded and how the slavery was institutionalized into laws and common practices. And from this, one very important element in the creation of patriarchy was actually to create the myths and the stories. Because our world is shaped by stories and myths. And that's a lot of what I do. I do a lot of storytelling workshops. I coach people on how to build their own narrative. And it's interesting to see the importance of stories. You know, we think that books and stories are, something for children, but actually they shape our reality. For example, there's a survey showing that the type of creation myths you have in a society actually has an impact on the percentage of fathers who are caring for children. So when the world is created uniquely by male, you have a little percentage. When the world is created by the couple in your society, then it's more. And when the world is created by female, you have an even bigger part of caring. So what happened is when patriarchy was the change sex. So and that can be Ishtar or names we had all around the Mediterranean up to the Hindus, to male gods. So we had a shift in the myths from who creates life, who brings evil, who is the mediator between human and supernatural. And so suddenly we pass to the woman who is giving birth to humanity, to man who is the mother of the woman. We shift the myth, right? Suddenly Eve is created in man's rib. So Adam is kind of the father, let's say, of Eve. And Eve, again, is causing the humankind to fall from paradise from her temptation. So we create this myth. We create this myth in Greek mythology, that Zeus actually swallowed his wife Mephis because there was an oracle saying that she might give birth to somebody who might dethrone him. So he drank her and swallowed her, which I think is a wonderful metaphor, and then gave birth himself to Athena. So again, giving birth to women. And the box of Pandora, no? Pandora, who is the one who actually opened the box and released all the evil on the world. See how myths actually shape the responsibility between men and women. And the Greek mythology was one of the bases of this, of the base of the dominator system, where we have a cruel Zeus, which is raping goddesses and mortal women everywhere, and that seems to be okay to everybody. And Aristotle in his Politics, talking about some are meant to rule and some are meant to be ruled. So how does it maintain itself? Because it's been here for thousands of years. So first, it maintains itself by obedience. Patriarchal culture rewards total obedience from men and women. If you obey, this is fantastic. If you don't obey, you're punished. No, we have the typical story of Abraham, and it's a myth as well of the idea of a man has to be able to repress his feelings to be part of the system. So there's no room for vulnerability, for tenderness, for love. No, children are sacrificed, and the inner child is sacrificed. And that goes for men and women. Actually, women have internalized these values because we are part of the system as much as men. And as mothers, we are actually transmitting this to boys and to girls so that they conform, so that they're not excluded from society. So the mothers are really a big impact and a big influence in this as well. Right? Because as a person part of the system, you have to choose between, okay, do you want to conform or do you want to take the risk of being rejected, right? So a lot of mothers and fathers prefer to shape their children so that they conform to the system. And what is tricky about it is women are the only oppressed group of society that lives in intimate association with their oppressors. I know it's a very provocative phrase, but whatever groups I was talking before, would it be the Afro-American in the US or the apartheid, or there was always a kind of separation. But here we living together and we are loving each other. So that's what's very tricky, right? Because trying to change shift, but at the same time we love each other. So, and we live together, and we're supposed to have kids together. So it's very tricky in itself. But the patriarchal system can only function with the cooperation of the women. If we had stopped to cooperate, this would stop right now. We are creating with it. So one of the first steps, according to me, to change this is to debunk the myths again in the story. First, when people say, yes, but from prehistorical time it's been like this, it's not true. Early men and women were equal. They had different roles. They had different responsibilities, but that didn't mean that one was on top of the other. It's not because women were actually more gatherer and men were more hunters, but this idea of the superiority of one unto the other just came later. If you're interested in this, there's again another interesting book called The Chalice and the Blade from Ryan Eisler, and explains as well this very interesting idea that before we had partnership society, and then we moved to this domination society. And she's really thinking that now is the time to pass again to a partnership society, because we can't go on like this on this dominator model. So a few myths, as I was saying. One, patriarchy is natural. This is false, because apparently women provided 60% of the food through their gathering, and the big game hunting was kind of auxiliary pursuit. So the cooperation was necessary. So again, this idea that separate roles didn't mean hierarchical. Second, it's been here forever. Naru. It developed over a period of 2,500 years. It started around 3,000 years before Christ at different paces. So it's historical. It's historical. Yeah, to me, is that in saying about biological explanation. Yes, it's true. Men and women are different biologically. But what's interesting is that men and women have gone beyond anatomy in so many things. I mean, we're controlling reproduction, we're having medicine, we're going on the moon, we're driving cars, and we're not sticking to nature in so many fields. But apparently, in terms of gender, we have to stick to it and not to move from the state of nature. And the other message that God has always been male, again, that's not true, right? Even on says the pagans pray to females. Before the invasions from the Aryans and from the Hebrews region, that's another, God was a woman from in the whole Middle East region was run by women god, like the Gate in Babylon. And you had this amazing culture which was shifted from northern invasions from the Aryans and the Hebrews around 2000, 3000 before Christ. So this system, to me, what is important to realize is that it's harmful to us all. We talk about women a lot, but it's harmful to men and to women. To women because it's more visible, obviously, because we have more limited freedom, especially sexual, but freedom to go, I mean, here in Pakistan, freedom to be dressed as I want, even in Jordan, in some places, and the limited ability and representation. And from men, this pressure, the constant pressure to prove your virility and to crush your feelings. So boys are socialized very young to be aggressive, to be physically dominant. That's the way it has to be, right? Because we see it from the God figures and the myths. We see it from the movies that true masculinity is violence and dominance. Because, and boys and men leave behind a mask. There's this very beautiful documentary called The Mask You Live In, and explaining there, especially in the US, how boys are very open, and I like this small film you can find, that you have these infants and toddlers who can explore a full range of emotion, and then little by little, by the age of 10, they're shamed, they're bullied, they're told to man up, come on. And so their range of emotion narrows. And the only thing that is allowed is anger or rage. This is okay, this is cool. You can be angry for a man. You can't cry, you can't be on your own, but you can be angry. It's narrowing is a pressure cooker that when it releases, all the addiction that we see will be alcoholism, depression, abuse, suicide. And we have a huge social isolation, illness, and mortality for men. So we're really talking of something extremely harmful. For example, in the, again, from the masculine, the suicide rate of boys is 7 times the rate of girls in 20 and 24. So there will be under a lot of pressure to get through this. And later, these impact women. As we all know, right, 1 in 3 women experiencing physical or sexual violence by an intimate partner all around us. So we're really talking an epidemic, something that is harmful to all of us. When there's a mass shooting, again, 90% that the perpetrator is a man. The idea that loneliness is even hurting the planet. The dominant system goes into all the capitalistic and the industrial system. And that you're losing me again. Can you hear me? Okay. So we're not talking about this. No, we always talk about micro but we're not talking about masculinity and the consequences that he has in terror attacks, for example. His own children. And actually, this, it's again the myths of Kronos, who is beating his children, tricked in being replaced by a stone. Of destroying the children. If you're into psychology, this is. Do you want to hang up and try again? Can you hear me, Christina? Poorly. You want to call me back? You can call me back. Okay. So I'll wait.
Thank you for being patient. Aurélie? What is this?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you, but I'm on my phone, so you won't get the picture there. Christina? Yes. Okay, do you want me to go? Hello?
Yes.
Do you want me to go on, Christina?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Please.
Okay, so I go on. Okay, you don't have the slide share. You know that.
It is okay.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay,
so
so
you hear me now, Aurélie?
yes, I hear you because I'm on the phone now.
Okay, fantastic. So let's go ahead.
Okay. So what do you mean? What I was patriotic from children?
The last thing we could actually understand a bit was the when you were talking about the mass breathed in the film.
Oh, really? So far?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying again.
We're patient.
Okay, so no, I was talking about on the math, and basically the idea is that the math is narrowing the expression of young boys. No, infants and toddlers can explore a full range of emotions, but after, through shaming, through bullying, through rejection, they learn that they're not allowed to express all emotions. So it's really kind of narrowing this range, and the only emotion that is allowed is kind of anger and violence. And then this is kind of a pressure cooker, right, for that then explodes into different addictions, depression, mortality, alcoholism. And the idea that this traditional toxic masculinity is harmful to our boys, because the suicide rate of boys is 7 times the girls between 20 and 24. So the suicide rate of boys is 7 times the one of girls, 20 and 24. And then this has an impact on women as well, because this anger is released on your partner, and 1 on 3 women experience physical or sexual violence in their lifetime. So again, whenever there's a mass shooting or massacre, there's 90% chance that the perpetrator is there. So this anger, this suppression of the emotions that we do all around the time has massive impact on society. And we can link it with all the terrorism that is right at the moment. So basically, the idea that patriarchy is destroying its own children. And with mythology, like Kronos is eating his children. That's how Zeus managed to escape, because he wrapped a stone instead of him, so that his father ate a stone instead of eating him. This is a little bit the same idea here. So my question to you is a little bit of Star Wars, right? Who do you need to be? Are you Luke Skywalker or Leia, or are you Darth Vader? You need these. You are Luke or Leia Skywalker, Darth Vader, like Star Wars.
Aurélie, can you repeat please the sentence again?
Okay, I'm saying, are you Luke Skywalker from Star Wars, or are you Darth Vader?
Or what? Darth Vader. So everyone heard you deciding that.
Darth Vader, like Star Wars.
Yeah. So
Can you understand?
So it was a question to the audience, right?
Yes, it's a question to the audience, but it's also thinking, are you the hero trying to question the patriarchy, or are you actually the powerful father who is trying to murder his son, right? Because this is a perfect metaphor for the patriarchy. So basically, now we're leaving the end of an era somehow. This idea that we have education budgets who are way lower than the military spending. If we stop spending money on the military for just 8 days, we provide 12 years of free education to every child on the planet, like 12 years. So we have gone, this patriarchal system has gone that far that even nature seems to rebel against it. So it's like Khaleesi's time, no? In Game of Thrones, it's time to slay the masters. And now is the time, this idea that the small, sometimes we can despair because this seems like a huge system, but small fluctuations actually lead to systems transformation. So this new world is possible, a new world where, for example, caring labor is fully integrated in our economy, where we have a decentralized economy with cooperative units, where we have new stories, where human beings are good and men are peaceful. We can work on this. And there are 2 books that I recommend you to read, and I put them in a Facebook event. But there are Feminism is for Everybody from Bell Hooks, and The Will to Change from Bell Hooks as well.
And she says that the achievement of full equality between sexes is the prerequisite for world peace. So we're talking about something massive, not like, yeah, we'll deal with women's issues after when everything else is set up. Actually, this is the language. So we need critical mass of people who can create a new archetype, a new story. We need consciousness raising, and we need self-development, both men and women. What I'm worried about, because I work a lot with women, is that there are so many programs for women, but I'm worried that we're going to end up with having a lot of women who are more self-aware, more developed, more educated, and then we're not working with the men. We're not working with them on this consciousness rate, on this self-development, on this emotional coaching, which we might do with the women. We develop even more gap. So I don't know if you know in Lebanon, the organization called Abad, but they work a lot to challenge the view of masculinity. And they do a project, they have a men's center, and they have released a manual that creates positive ideas of manhood, which is in English and in Arabic. I really engage you to have a look at it because it's really relevant for the region.
Can you please have the name of the manual here so that people can look it up later?
Yeah. So after we'll do something else, I will explain. After we'll go on WhatsApp call, and then I'll share the Skype through Skype. But it's all because I can't type now. I'm on the phone, you know.
Yeah, sure.
So I will do it. But it's called Abad, ABAAD.
ABAAD, Abad,
Yeah. And they talk about this, about how to change the discourse from power over to power with. If you're interested, there's also Men Engage Alliance, which is engaging men and boys to promote gender equality, and Pro. In the US, what's interesting is that the University of Duke is actually offering a course to men about toxic masculinity, 9-week program to talk about this, about everything I've told you like quickly, and sensibilize them, which is lovely. If you're different, they have, for example, tips on how to be an old dad or how to be a great teacher, etc. But big copy stuff.
Can you stop for a bit?
Yeah.
Because your voice is going on and off so that we have... Now can we start maybe now?
Okay. So I was talking about the manuals and the tips given on the main webpage. So we need more awareness, and we need models. People like Justin Trudeau from Canada, especially that he is a feminist. We need new masculine images. So, for example, Getty Images has partnered with Lean to portray new masculine images, and I'll show you after on the slide. New parenting styles to show fathers caring for babies, right, and the sons. And yeah, so for me, the last question for all of you is that I believe that we all have patriarchy in us to some degree because we've been educated in it, we've grown up in it, but it's hurting us. Every time you judge somebody, every time you look at somebody and think, okay, I'm above or I'm below that person, this is patriarchy speaking. This is dominance speech speaking, right? So this is hurtful to all of us. So that's a question to all of you. What do you think about this, and what do you do about it on a daily basis? That's it.
That's it. It's a huge question.
It's a huge question. So what I will do is that try to call me on WhatsApp, and I'll try to call you on Skype so that we can have both things going on at the same time, okay?
Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. Yeah. The question was, the last question already asked everyone, is what do we do with patriarchy on a daily basis, like with the patriarchy that lives within each and every one of us? How do we perceive it on a daily basis, and what do we do in our like little lives about like changing it and changing our perspective? But I'll try to call here.
Hello, yes.
Yes, let's do it here already. Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. This is fantastic.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. So I will just, meanwhile we have the conversation, I will show you the slides that you didn't see before, okay?
Okay, perfect. And I was also suggesting that we will be able to post like the full slideshow that you on patriarchy that you have on the event, so that people who are not able to follow for a poor image quality or because they were late or because they didn't hear you, they can still have that information.
Sure.
Okay. So shall we start with the questions?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So I would like maybe to start with the first question, to get back a little bit to the natural versus cultural, but both because in that part we were losing you a lot, and because this is a very important bit in understanding, I think, patriarchy, because always the resisting arguments are that, but this is natural because, as you mentioned, women are weaker than men, and women and men are different, so why would you seek equality? So,
Okay.
one of the things that actually enhances this sometimes is fake research. Because there is so much input from the so-called researchers that are very difficult to kind of track back and to see whether they come from an actual source. Like, what I'm trying to say is that science very often it backs up patriarchy. So what I would like to know is your thoughts on why does science do this, and how can we deal with that on a daily basis? How to know which research is something you can trust and which research is not?
Okay, so it's easier. Research and science studies what is funded. So again, to funds that are allocated to some research or some others, some topics are more research than others. For example, in terms of healthcare, up to
We hear you very poorly.
okay. Okay. Try.
There is a suggestion.
I will.
There is a suggestion to remove the slides, maybe, that we would hear you better.
You think?
Well, someone suggested it, that it might work.
We can try. We can also try by WhatsApp,
Yeah,
and we just.
I tried, but it's not connecting to you.
Yeah, but I'm trying on 3G now. So.
Okay.
you, but now I'm calling you on WhatsApp.
Yeah, so you hear me on WhatsApp?
Now I hear you on site. Okay, so I will quit the site share. I'm sorry, I know these technical things are not very fun for the audience.
No, it's not very fun, but it's okay. I mean, you're in Pakistan, it's understandable. I'm very happy that you're trying to do this. But you know, this is a good excuse for you to come to Jordan and have a nice workshop with us here.
I can tell. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Is it better?
Yes, it is a little bit better. So let's get back to this research thing again.
So, just saying that research follows the funds, saying that, for example, in healthcare, research, most of the medicine was tested most uniquely on male body. So it was thought that female has different hormones. It was not reliable enough. So we were reducing medicine, actually testing them on women. So, talking again, obviously, it's hard to say. The idea is to investigate who tested this, who's behind, who is actually funding the research, what is the size of the research, etc., etc. But more than this, it's like, now, would we allow, for example, a research to say that a black man, an Arab man, is different from a white man, and therefore it's okay to dominate him? Would we be okay with this?
Aurélie, we have to, I think, try to call you again, because it's being very, very...
Okay.
I'll try to call you
Okay.
again, okay? It's so frustrating. I'm sorry, guys.
Hello, is it better now?
Wow, yes.
Because it's the phone and it's 3G. The other was Wi-Fi.
Wow, okay. So you were saying something about black man, Arab man, and domination. That's all I could grasp.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that when we talk about this gender research, I think we are still very tolerant about something that is extremely sexist. It's now today, if we would have a study saying that the Arab man is genetically or naturally different from the European man, so that is why it's okay to dominate him, I don't think people would be really okay with that kind of research. Right? It would sound extremely racist. And yet, on gender, we kind of okay with that. So for me, it questions more the fact that we tolerate this. It's so embedded in our culture that we don't even question the relevance of it. So I would advise, to obviously look into all the data and research. But more than this, it's what I was saying before. It's now we can have research proving everything, right? The A and the B, like 1 and 0. Okay. So my question is more than this, is to say, are we okay with the way things are? Are we okay that half of the population is under the power of the other half? Is it okay for us, and do we want to keep it going? Because there is no system of domination. At one point it was okay for people to have slaves, and it was normal, and it was considered natural, and it was even validated by the church, right? But this ended. So it's more this idea of, okay, at one point, are we okay with the situation? Because each system of domination, even backed up by any political or religious system, at one point had an end. So we can discuss about this, about what does nature say or not, but we are not in a state of nature for so many things. For me, that's the argument. Right? Because if not, we would not have gone to the moon. If not, we would not drive a car. If not, we would not eat the food we are eating. We are not doing anything natural, anything. And suddenly, for gender roles, we're like, oh, we have to stick to nature suddenly. Really? What is it that we do that is natural? Nothing. The food we eat, where we sleep, whatever we do is not natural. It's all processed. So I don't think that even if there would be a research, and again, what can a research say? That we're different? Yes, we are. What else? It's not because we're different that one is supposed to dominate the other.
Yeah. Thank you for a very explicit answer. I would like to take questions from the audience that were so patient today.
Yes, thank you very much. I would be so pissed. I'm super impatient with the technical stuff.
Well, some of them are probably data, but those are.
Yeah.
I would like to take the question from them. Would you like to pass me the papers, or would you like to come speak here closer? What do you prefer? Those are questions. Yeah. Do you have questions? Please come.
Hi. Hello. Hi, Lina.
I have one question about the last thing you mentioned, and that
Okay.
every other kind of discrimination, almost every other kind of discrimination has ended some way or another, except the part about men dominating women. Why do you think
Yeah.
slavery has mostly ended and many other forms of discrimination has ended, except this thing? What takes it so
Because, okay, so that's one of the things I said at one point is that what is so special about this is that we live and we love our oppressors. So it's tricky, right? So there are two parts of it. One part is we as women, we are cooperating with the system. Because at one point, either the cost to rebel against it, the cost to be against this obedience that is required from us is very high, right? People it can be from laughing at you, from denigrating you, criticizing you, to up to here in Pakistan, for example, up to killing you. So the cost is very high, especially for women to rebel. And that's how it's maintained very much. And the second is it's as if we've been split. You know, these rule of the British colony, for example, and the French colony as well, to divide to rule. It's as if as women we've been all splitted into different families, and we have our own domination system at home. So we don't unite as much as other collectives. So there's one part that we are cooperating in our own domination every day. Why? Because again, the cost is very high to get out. So what do you say? What do you say? Look, I want to be a dominator myself. You know, I want as well to be part of the system. I want to crush as well the weakest, would they be women and men? And that's what we reproach to women who are climbing the ladder. And I'm like, I understand it because you've struggled so far, but women are part of the system first. And the second is that, we love, again, the people who are part of it. And I think, for me, another thing is we are not working on men enough. We are not working enough with men. We are not sensibilizing men enough. We think that us women, we're going to liberate ourselves by ourselves. The problem is that we are not separate from the men because we are a unit, a family, a couple, whatever. So it's super difficult to manage this on our own somehow. So I do think we need to work much more with the men, which is tricky, but so yeah, and there's also part of unlearning. We've learned so much. We've internalized the myth. We've internalized the idea that we are weaker. We've internalized the idea that we are less powerful. I mean, in Iceland, they stopped the country in '74 when all the women went on strike. All over the world, the women go on strike tomorrow, the world stops. We have our rights, but we don't do it because we've internalized our weakness and the fact that, yeah, this system is not that bad after all. So there's so much of work. I mean, I'm glad to see what's happening in the US, but we had to go that far. We really had to elect somebody like Trump so that women go on the streets. So, you know, how far do you have to go to really trigger something? Did I answer you, Lina?
Yes, you did answer me. I think at the end it starts with women, and I think if women stood up for themselves, things would be much easier because there's so many women who actually raise men to be dominators.
Oh, yes.
Many women who truly do think it's part of, they do think that it's part of nature that they be dominated. So I think if we started with women first, maybe it would be much easier because when you claim what is yours, it becomes easier for you to get it.
Completely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lina.
Do you have any other questions? Can I just take a moment? Yeah, please. Hello.
Hello.
My name is Katrina, and I just wanted to put forward one comment related to the previous question. And the thought that I have is that why other forms of oppression ended faster, earlier, maybe also because that other forms of oppression were much more obvious. Exactly. You had chains, you have different passes, you have different. Yeah, and I think that with gender identities, it's much more soft, and it's harder to draw the line where this domination is actually happening, because maybe you really just care for me, and that's why I don't work, let's say. So it's not that obvious as, for example, with slavery.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I hear your point. Perhaps it was much more in your face. Would it be slavery or apartheid or etc.? But I also think that the media is male-dominated. The stories we listen to, the books we read, the magazines, the cinema, the movies, anything is male-dominated. So there are so many stories that we actually don't hear. For example, I mean, there are a lot of data on, for example, there are more women in the UK that have been killed by their partner in the last year than the soldiers who have been killed in Afghanistan or in Iraq. So it's like, but these ones, we hear them every day, right? So it's this idea of what do you also value in the stories you tell and in the media? Because yes, some part of oppression can be soft, as you say, but women are killed, sexually abused, sexually mutilated, raped, beaten every fucking day, you know, and that's in our face. So I'm like, yes and no. And when I say it to people, you know, when I say, for example, in the US, 1 woman out of 5 will be either raped or leave an attempt of rape in her life. And people are like, no, you exaggerate. No, I don't. So, you know, it's, I don't know, because if you really sum up all the figures, it's pretty massive. We don't really want to see it.
Probably because since we have a system of hierarchy, so it's very easy to say that certain lives matter more than others. So if a man is
Yeah.
good, we perceive it differently than when a woman is good, because
Yeah.
it's either it never has the same value, and it's probably part of the problem. So it kind of that just to comment on what Kate said before, it's just it kind of this thin line is there, it's kind of in your face, but you still give it less value because of the root of length. The root is the same of the issue. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Please, we have another question here.
Yeah, hi Aurélie, my name is Fatima.
Hello. Hi, Fabi.
Yeah, hi. And yeah, I wanted to go further with this thing of the systems of domination and so on. And one thing I don't agree that much on is that while the other forms of domination were overcome, this is not. Because the thing is that I don't think other forms of domination were overcome, but they were integrated within the system. And sometimes they are integrated within the feminist discourse. And so there's class and race that we neglect much more, like in the hegemonic discourse of feminism, which is the white liberal discourse of feminism, that kind of creates this kind of structures by, of course in a subtle way, not on purpose, but as you were quoting before, maybe it's just that we don't see our privilege, and so we don't think in terms of it. Which means that it's not only about women not getting united and so on, but also women creating those barriers and those structures, and women not feeling represented by this kind of hegemonic discourse on feminism. And as for instance, black feminism as a general word to other kinds of discourse on feminism that of course doesn't care of white claims against patriarchy, because they say, yeah, but they don't care about our being more harmed by race and class and so on. So I would like to know, how do you feel about this label of white feminism, and how do you think this material basis of the feminist discourse, based on capitalist system, on the political relations you spoke about, colonialism and so on, is maybe creating new barriers itself?
Okay. So I do agree with you. We haven't talked about this. Then on the article that I posted on the two books, that's why I really recommend Bell Hooks, because she's Afro-American and she's definitely talking about that. She's definitely talking about the intersectionality and about the fact that white women have taken over the feminist movement and made the fact that a lot of black women or women from non-liberal or non-elite class don't feel represented by this movement. And she even goes further and she says that white women have kind of abducted the feminist movement just to actually gain power to be as dominant as the men. And then when they got the power, they ditched the feminist movement. They were like, okay, that's it. So I agree with you. I don't know what to say more than this. I mean, I'm a white woman, so I'm privileged in that sense, and I'm aware of it. And it's also a lot of question when I come here. So, for example, when I'm here in Pakistan, I'm listening as much as I can. I'm not coming being the white lady to liberate people. But I'm really trying to listen to the stories. So what I do in many places around the world is just that I help people connect the dots between their own stories and to see their own strength, no matter where they are, would they be in Spain or in Pakistan. More than trying to, the famous feminist slogan, no, don't liberate me. In French, it's like ne me libère pas, je m'en charge, no? So don't liberate me, I can do it. So I agree with you. I agree that there are different voices in the feminist movement. I agree that, again, the mediatic feminists are the white and the elite ones. So there is still class and race oppression even within the feminist movement. So it's not over. I agree with you. If not, we wouldn't have movements like Black Lives Matter. So yes, definitely. And that means being able to listen to other types of feminism as well, to listen to Islamic feminists, to know, for example, what they have to say, even if you agree or you don't agree, but to see how we are kind of all contributing, I hope, to the same thing, even if we use different approaches. I don't know if I answer you, Fabi.
Thank you very much. And it was just because, of course, it's something that also troubled me, because I kind of grew up thinking that being a feminist was acting like a white male, which I mean, it's at the very base of the thing. I mean, it's completely mistaken. So yeah.
Okay.
So thank you. But actually talking about this, the importance of intersectionality, I think it's nice to bring here this very positive thing up that, for example, the Women's March in Washington, the leadership of the march was very thoughtful of this, and they made it they really paid a lot of attention to diversify as much as possible the leadership of the march. So it's kind of a positive sign that hopefully will spread all over the place. And also the discussion you had about the hierarchy within the feminist movement itself brings me to this question. Aurélie, maybe you could share your thoughts with us on this. Do you think we can address patriarchy without addressing capitalism?
No, I don't think we can. I think it's very linked. For me, for example, it's always a struggle, no? For example, I do a lot of trainings, and sometimes I do trainings in big companies. How much am I actually cooperating with the system, right? Even if it's a training about diversity, but if you train actually a company who is selling weapons, I mean, what's the coherence of it all? So it's something that is a constant struggle for me. Yes, of course, it's the same thing, because at the end of the day, it's the idea of this hierarchy, of this domination society. So no, I don't think we can. I think we had a lot of expectation when there was the financial crisis, and we thought that it would change something. It didn't. So again, how far will we have to go? I think a lot of us are afraid as well about how it is going. How we're heading to war, more war, than what's already going on, or not. I don't know what we need to have this state of awareness, because it's all very much linked, and we haven't talked about religion, because I know it's a very touchy topic, but I think the spirituality, taking the religion out of it, but the spirituality is very linked as well to all this conversation, right? Because now we're not thinking that we are one. We say we are one, but we're not. So it's a complete shift in economic system, in gender, and for me the connection with love and spirituality is very much there as well. And it's interesting here, being in Pakistan, to see I was quite surprised to see the strength of the Sufi movement here. That's something that I was not really expecting here. And to see how young people are really into, for example, you have a lot of concerts about Sufi music, and all the young people know the lyrics and the poems, which is really interesting for me to see. And as if people were craving from something that would be much more about love than about fear, much more about unity than about domination, no?
Yeah, and talking about fear and domination and the crave for love, I want to ask you, how do you think someone who really would like to start seeing his or her own privilege and question him or himself, it seems like a big journey to embark. What would be your advices, or did he push this forward for those people?
So there are different things. I mean, Bell Hooks, for example, what she says at the beginning of the feminist movement in the 70s were simply groups, groups of discussions, group of consciousness raising. I think, so there are different things. I think it's first a lot of learning. So there are really interesting books, and I have a few of them on my website, but I can advise you if you want. But it's starting reading different books, starting learning from as well the other, whatever other is, but would it be different class, different, but trying to learn and to listen to the other narrative. And after it's also a lot of self-reflection, checking your own privilege, which is very difficult. But if you manage to do this in groups or have groups of consciousness raising where you discuss about different topics, I think it's a way to do this. After, I mean, you can see a lot of the slideshare that I have on the group and see what you think about it, but there are very simple things that we can do. One, for example, is language. Language is very easy and very hard at the same time. Try to use language where you don't judge people. Just this. It's massive, it's super difficult, because you realize that you judge every single minute. Would you say it or would you think it? And me, I do it all the time. So it's first just this, because if you switch this in your mind already, the non-judging, well, that's already a shift, a massive shift. And that's something that does not require any investment or anything, but just switching the language. So the judging, no insults towards others or towards yourself. No language that is insulting for women or for men, even if you don't mean it. But how many times do we say, no, hijo de puta madre, anything in any language, which is basically connotated. So I think the language is actually something that we can all work on. And we can also tell people around us, no, it's not okay, this is not okay. But at least on the language, because this is the basic of us all. And after, it's a constant checking of what you buy, for example, or the toys or the books, of the stories you tell around you, about you, and about role models, no? Which stories do you tell about you to your children? Which stories do you read to them? Which stories do you bring them to see at the movies? So there's a lot of this, and after there's I mean, I don't know if it's the final step, but after is the activism. It's like, how do we check accountable or political representatives, right? How do we actually are citizens? And here I include myself. I don't think I'm citizen enough, even in my own country, which is going more and more right in France. I'm not very active politically because it doesn't appeal to me, and yet And yet it's because people like us don't say anything that people like Trump get elected. So yeah. Hi. Hi, Sarah.
Okay, I'm not actually a feminist myself. I like to listen to
Mm-hmm.
from what I could understand from what you were saying, that feminist movement asks for liberation, for women's liberation. And my question is that they want to be liberated from who? And they want also to be in power, they want to be elected, they want to be in positions of power with the people who are now in power. So to me this is, I mean, it means that they don't want to eradicate patriarchy. They want to be a part of it too. So
Yeah.
if you can explain this to me.
Yes. So yes, I agree. So I agree. We talked about this as well, about the fact that a lot of feminists are actually like fighting, but as you say, what they want, and especially the white privileged ones, are fighting to get the same privilege as men. And then when they have it, it's like, okay, that's fine. So yes.
The essence that I understand of the feminist movement is they want rights for women, which like in many countries they do have the rights. Being oppressed and having rights are different things. I mean, half of the world is women and half of the world are being dominated by men. They can do something about it. They just choose not to because they have more to lose. And I think it's a personal decision.
So, okay, I agree partly with you. So, yes, again, that's what I said. Women are responsible, and we have to move our ass. I agree with that. That if not, this will go on and on. So, yes. And when I say it's a system of oppression, it doesn't mean we're victims. So, yes, we have a responsibility. Now, let's be clear about the cost it has. The cost is big. It can cost you your career, it can cost you your reputation, it can cost you your life. So if we don't do it, it's not because we're completely cowards as well, right? It's because the system is done so that we don't. And that's why it requires a lot of unity. So I think that the problem of feminism as any movement is that the initial philosophy is valid, but then different people have used it to arrive to their own benefits, no? To use, you understand me? And so now when people say I'm not a feminist, it's because they don't want to be associated with these kind of people. It's because they're like, oh, I don't recognize myself with these people who are actually wanting to be the tops on top of me as the men. I'm not like this. And I hear you. But technically, to be a feminist means that you want women and men to have the same rights. That's the definition. So technically, we are, you know what I mean? I think, I hope.
I mean, they are, I don't think, from what I know, I don't think that there are any laws that says women can do this and men can't, or vice versa. The laws are the same for everyone. No.
The laws are the same for men and women. How much can you inherit in your family?
Okay, but if I'm looking for an inheritance, that's the first step for me to be a dependent person waiting for my parents to die. I should learn how, let's face it, I should learn how to be independent financially. So even if my parents have like will give me an inheritance or not, I'm responsible for me. I mean, I think I'm
Yes,
anyway
you.
to my parents when I'm being independent and not waiting for the inheritance. So I don't really care about the inheritance. I really care about me providing for me with no need
Yes, but you, okay. I mean, I guess many people will want to debate this with you right now, but I don't think, yeah, I mean, we'll talk together, I guess. It will be easier that I intervene on this, but I don't think we are, I understand what you mean, that you want this this independence. I think it's very difficult to be completely independent. We are all part of the universe, you know what I mean? It's like we're not completely isolated. And so I hear what you say, but we can't be in denial as well. I mean, you can't tell me that the laws are the same for men and women when one testimony of a man is worth the one of 4 women. I mean, how fair is that? So,
do you know that for this talk about inheritance, the men who get double the inheritance are supposed to take care of the woman who take half, and the inheritance that they take.
yeah, but it means that you have to get married.
No.
Well,
The rest of the family, the men are responsible for the woman. So they get more inheritance because they're responsible for their financial management.
yeah, because they're responsible for taking care of their future wife.
So yeah, well, I have to think about that more. But
Yeah, no, I mean, again, we all, I mean, and you'll talk about this between each other, but what I think we should not lose the objective, because we can fight on how is it best to get there, but I feel like we've fought so much about this that at the end of the day we're not making any progress, you know? So I hear really that there are different types of feminism, that we need to be very cautious about that and about our privilege within it, but whatever is pissing you right now in your situation, even if you don't consider yourself as a feminist, what do you do about it? What are you doing? And perhaps it's you taking care of yourself, finding a job, and being sure that you don't depend financially about anybody, and that's the way. I don't think all the women can do this, because I guess you have the education to do that, but many women don't have it, so at one point they can't even get to your point. So I think at one point it's also thinking that it's not only an individual issue, it's a collective one.
I believe that it's all goes back to education. If I want to do something, I would actually work on educating women and people like girls ever since they're kids. And I think
Yeah.
the first step is giving them a good and proper education and making it a point that they have to be educated.
Yeah.
Therefore, they can be independent and they can be.
Yeah,
It's always,
completely.
it's always what people are afraid to do is that stops them from doing anything. And if
Mm-hmm.
they don't have an education, they have a lot to lose because they always be independent.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you, Aurélie.
definitely. Thank you.
Tina, would you like to add a point to this, or we take another question here? No, no, please go ahead.
Hi, Aurélie, it's Lena again.
Hi, Lina.
I just wanted to add something about Sarah's point. I think it's not, of course, it's not about independence. We're not talking about independence and that. But I just want to add this: if we want to be an independent woman, we need to have the same right as men in society, in first place. So it's not about inheritance. We don't care about inheritance. But if I want to have a fair chance to get the proper work, to get even when I'm very low education, I need to have equal rights with men. And there's another point I want to add is that I think that feminism is good for both women and men. And when men understand this, they would actually become supporter for it.
Of course.
Yeah, because it's a funny thing now. I can imagine about the inheritance thing. If I'm a father who got all my children are girls, I wouldn't be that happy because my neighbor has all men, he would be much more powerful than me. Even I'm,
Yeah.
we are both men. If we are living in a world that actually doesn't give equal rights for women and men. So I think it's a better place and better world for everybody if we just support this cause. So feminism is not that I want to empower women over men. It's I want to make the world a better place for both of them. So it's not like a competition.
Yeah, and if you think this, really read this book, The Chalice and the Blade, because they say this. They say that the objective is not to replace patriarchy by matriarchy. That would be replacing a domination system by another one, right? So how can we go towards a partnership system? And because yes, as you say, men would love to spend more time with their children, to have more emotional connection with their loved ones, to have more time for themselves, to have less pressure to be fit and to provide for money and to be always the perfect one. It's also a very heavy weight for men.
There's a very basic question now. We are living in a world that men, let's say, it's a fact that men are dominating women, but are men happy? They're not.
Yeah,
They're not.
exactly.
They will become happier.
Completely. And again, I invite you to read the Bell Hooks book because she talks about this from the perspective of love. And another thing, sorry.
Yeah, I am very willing to.
And another thing I wanted to add, I mean, since we're talking about the rights, I think the rights is just the base. Because first, the rights, would you use them or not? They tell you how much value you actually have for the society. Second, I think that, for example, I'm French, and in France, I think legally, we have the same rights. I do think we have the same rights. Perhaps I'm not completely aware, but still, we have so much misogyny. And so it's not only about the rights, it's the unconscious bias, it's the political world who doesn't want to see any women in it, the sports world, the leadership, the investment. So it's, it goes really beyond, it's really changing this boys club mentality. And it takes a lot, because to be an isolated woman in a man's world and to still stick to your feminist principles, chapeau, it's very harsh.
Thank you so much. We have another question, Aurélie, please.
Yeah.
Hi, Aurélie, my name is Nan.
Hi, Anne.
I have a couple of questions. The first one is pretty simple. And I don't know how common is this, but how do we separate being a feminist from being called a man hater? And I don't know how common is that. But
Okay.
possibly being judged as a man hater for being a feminist.
Okay.
Second question is a bit more complicated. In their European community, women were the basis of the revolution, and now they make about 50% of the workforce. And in the U.S., if we're talking about rights, they're asking for equal pay. But okay, they have masculine misogynism, because they elected Trump, of course. So why did the women revolution work better in a European community or in the United States, and we are so far behind in the Middle East? In the Middle East, women are only 20% of the workforce here. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So the man hater, I mean, who of you hates the man? So, the man hater. I mean, the man hater is a narrative that has been created by the media to demonize the feminist movement. I don't know many feminists who is actually a man hater, to be honest. And so for me, it's a myth. I personally love men, and that's also why I'd like to work more on masculinity and understanding how we can bring them into this. So again, any movement who wants to challenge a system of power is criticized, is given restrictive narratives. You spend more time justifying what you are and what you are not than actually fighting. So I think, if possible, that we have to pass on this. You know, if some people commend this to you, and we don't have to justify ourselves all the time, but I don't know again if I answer you, but I don't think it's a valid point. I don't think feminists hate men. At the opposite. It's and this would mean that feminism is of women against men, and it's not true. It's about men and women against prejudice. So it's not even seeing what it is. On the other side, on US, Europe versus Middle East, it's a very complex question, and it's very hard for me coming from Europe and coming from one of the main power that has colonized the Middle East to have an objective answer. So I think there are different reasons, and we could go into this in much more than 5 minutes. I think that women actually were probably more liberated in some cases before Europe came to the Middle East than they are now. In many places, in Afghanistan, in Iran, and in many places. So I don't, you know what I mean? There are so many countries, like for example in Nigeria, where they tell you that we actually brought very traditional gender roles, European colonial powers, to different places, which weren't there before. So I would really mediate this narrative, and as well because we think that US and Europe is way further, and it is on many things, but it is not. I think under the surface, we're as misogynistic, you know, so I think it's a cover. We have a better cover. The outside obviously is better, and we are better on many points. But I think we're also very good at lying to ourselves. And on the other hand, in the Middle East, for example, you have more women tech entrepreneurs in ratio that you have in the US or in Europe. And I'm not saying that's the criteria, but I don't think there's a single story on this. Because if not, what is difficult as well with feminism, at least for example in French history, in Algeria, for example, is that it's been used, feminism has been used by Western powers as an argument, as a cover for imperialism. And I mean, Bush sold partly the fact that he would go to Afghanistan like liberating the women, which was not true, because when they put the Taliban aside and they had the warlords coming in, they were as bad, if not worse, than the Talibans with the women. But we didn't care about them anymore. So in Algeria, French people have unveiled women because we were liberating them, right? So I think it's also very hard. For example, when I'm here in Pakistan, I'm always very careful about this, because I think a lot of societies in the Middle East, and again, that's the role of religion, obviously, but may not have come fast on that topic because of a reaction to Western imperialism as well. Not so much because they wouldn't want to, but because as an opposition, no? And here it's just an interpretation, and it's hard to cover this point in. But I do believe there's a part of this, no? There's a part of reaction to the West as well, in sticking to very traditional values, as an identity thing and saying, okay, that's who we are, and we don't want to compromise on what we believe are our values. So now that's when we need feminist movements from within and not from without, right? I don't know if I'm answering Anne. I'm fine. Don't worry.
Hi, I'm another Lina. My name is Lina.
Hi, Lina.
Hi. Regarding the feminine movement and hating men,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a very good example of being torn between those two things. Like my lower self would be jealous
Mm-hmm.
and would be hating my brothers
Mm-hmm.
because they take the double. Although we are a Christian family, we follow
Mm-hmm.
the system here, and this is one of the main reasons why I came today.
Mm-hmm.
I feel very anxious to express my feelings. Now,
Yeah.
my higher self is telling me that this anger can be translated into a positive energy,
Mm-hmm.
which is forgiving
Mm-hmm.
and understanding, because it was not their choice, but they came to the world with this system and concept. And my role as an elder sister to accept, as I said, forgive and do something with this energy, it's to make
Yeah.
a difference. So what choices do I have, is number one, educate my children,
Mm-hmm.
treat them equally, that's for sure, and helping other women understand the difference between wasting our energy in comparison and hating, and focusing on the real meaning of the feminine movement or feminist movement, whatever you call it, and it really is the education of how we can move forward, leave our anger behind and move forward. So the first step, that is to teach women not to be angry, but rather use that energy to make a difference and educate. And the most beautiful thing is, to me, that I have, enjoyed today is cooperating with men, that we are not really competing with them, but rather bringing the world to a better understanding and creating better families and a better future. So that's, I thought I would like to share this insight.
Thank you very much, Lina. Yes, definitely. So I hear you. I hear you on the anger. I had, my mom passed away, and I just have now my father and my brother. So every time I go back home at Christmas, we fight. We fight about that topic, because I want to convince them, and they feel so much that I want to convince them that they resist me. So this year I tried a new strategy, and I tried to let go, Even when my dad was telling me sexist jokes and whatever in front of my face, I was like, okay, I will not get angry. And actually I could see that now he's like kind of, noticing things, and he's like, oh yes, I saw this, but this movie on, you will not like it. I mean, so I hear you. It's huge to pass from the anger, because I think it's normal we have anger. I'm sorry, but when your rights are not respected, it makes you angry. So I do agree with you that this is a beautiful transition to manage to transform this anger into something positive. I also think that empathy is really the key. So I think that if you have the opportunity, would it be organizing workshops, or would it be in conversations, or would it be, for example, with your brothers or whatever? If you have the opportunity to frame it in a way that they can understand how you feel, and that you manage to put them in your feet, and vice versa, put yourself in your feet as well, in their feet as well, I think this can change a lot in a conversation. Because, for example, when I try to explain feminism, men imagine it's an attack to them, and it's we're going to take something from them. But if I try to explain from the idea of, okay, when was the last time you didn't have a choice? When was the last time somebody imposed something on you and you couldn't say anything about it? Remember that moment, whatever moment it was. How did you feel? Were you pissed off? Okay, so that's how I feel. You know, to have these, because I think a lot of men can relate to this. Men hate to be dominated by anybody. So if you can connect to this as well, I don't know, perhaps I'm too genuine and naive, but I hope, you know, this empathy also works about getting them to realize not only the danger that sometimes we tend to talk about, but more this moment of pissed off when somebody imposes you something. And perhaps, yeah, so I agree with you, Lina, and I think it's a beautiful way to end this conversation, but how do we transform the righteous anger that we have in something positive, in love at the end of the day, so that we manage to make this place, this world, a beautiful place, a more beautiful place.
Thank you, Aurélie, so much. I'm afraid we're going to have to end because it's getting very late back there, so we don't want to exhaust her around this. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Aurélie, so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and I know it was complicated, but feel free to interact, and you have my contacts, Christina can give you, and feel free to ask me more questions if you have, and to share the resources, and at least to engage conversations around you about this, so that's, little by little we make some changes, and I will let you discuss between yourselves now.
Thank you, Aurélie. I'll be in touch.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good night. Bye.
So before you leave, I just wanted to tell you that if you go on the event page, you will actually find Aurélie posting a couple of links. One to her page, Shift Balance, through which you can find a lot of her slat shares if you're interested, including the slat shares she was trying to show us today.